Good afternoon, all. Camelback Trading 2724 coming to you this Thursday afternoon, June 18th. We're looking at the last 3 days of the market profile of the SPY ETF here on Window Trader. I put it small to begin with to show you 3-day balance, right? We had an inside day yesterday. We came out of it with a gap. Sellers showed nothing, right? We had a price probe. That was accepted because we opened down here. So anybody who sold below C's low yesterday made money. But we gapped lower, tried to push lower, really didn't get anywhere. Came back, filled the gap in the first time frame. We went in and out of yesterday's range almost all day. The incredibly important part of today was again M period from yesterday. Yes, we traded below it a bunch of times, but the bulk of our trading day was once again in M's range. I did not think we would stay there. I really didn't. I thought we were going to either break finally and get below the opening, which held like a champ today in C, F, K, and certainly in L. I thought we'd get below that and force down, possibly testing the 16th low, or since we kept failing coming out of it, remember you fail, you look below a previous day's low, you come back in, well, where's your ultimate destination? Up here. Looked like in C and D we might get a run for it. Looked like in I we might get a run for it. But we had overlap into lower value all day. This isn't lower. It's overlap into lower. And the indices just weren't supporting that type of move. So we got some pretty big rotations where the market got too long, flushed out, got too short, went back up. I had a good day today. Again, because of a lot of conflicting things, kept me out of bigger sizes. I thought the buyers, after the initial push by the bears on a gap lower, after one time framing up in B to stop it in C, but then we got not rejected, it failed the opening, and then goes all the way back up, and D has a poor high. I really thought things were setting up where the bulls would try to take more control than what they did and start pushing higher, at least to yesterday's POC. Just didn't happen. There was no energy, no nothing. Horrible volume. The volume on the day, wow, 69 million with the after hours. So we're going to be doing about 75 million. So it's pretty poor again. Now remember, we have ex-dividend. I'll go over that in a minute. Let's go over my trades today. I had a good day. Nothing spectacular. I never played with any big size except once. I was long one time over 100 contracts. That worked out very, very nice on a long play, and I'm trying to remember what period that was. Trying to think. But I'll figure that out in a minute. I'll let you know. So anyway, in A period, I did take 2 short plays versus the gap. Okay? Both were, I think, above the opening, but we didn't get the gap right away. Came back to around the opening, took them off. Both small, both good. B period. Took a long... right before we started one time framing up, when we started rallying, figured we'd pop A's high. We did, because the gap filled, the price probe now, we're back inside of it. That turned out to be a good trade. In fact, I did it twice. We actually had that lowest accepted price at the time where B opened up, only went down a couple of ticks and went up. I didn't realize it the first time I went long, but I did do it against it the second time, and it worked nicely. So 2 longs in B versus the one-time framing up and the lowest accepted price at the time. Then D. We had single prints, believe it or not, to start. I actually took a small long in D against the singles, added on to it because we were one-time framing up. Even though the singles filled, it went back up. Didn't get to the high, but it's still a good trade. Okay. E period. Again, we started out game. Up, down, up, down. E period went down. Got down to value low at the time and got down to yesterday's low at the time. And it held. I held a couple of times. I took a long against that, both against value low and yesterday's low. And that one worked. I'm trying to think which one I took the size trade. I think it was in... I'm sure if it was E and F. E or F. I'm sorry. It was one of those. I don't remember. Because again in F period, I came back. I saw we had traded down. It had gone both ways. I was like, you know what? Is that possibly an afternoon pullback low at the time? So I got long again in F versus the low and opening when we got back into it, back into yesterday's range, and that was a good trade. So E had to be the one I took the size trade. That was probably my best trade of the day. Okay, what else? G. Took another small long in G. It was just a small win. Again, I took long. Now, why was I taking longs? I was taking longs because, yes, value was overlapping to lower. Yes, we were. I don't want to say, we were one time framing down, one time framing up. For my money, it was balanced most of the day. But until they were going to prove that they could take out the opening, nothing had changed for me. So again, I did it in J period. I took a long against value low and against F's low, and that worked out nicely. I didn't do anything in L. I was thinking about it. It kept sitting there. I'm like, is this the time they finally break, take out the opening and get the day's low? Didn't happen. I didn't take a trade. M period open, went right down on poor structure, got long right away, came right back, repaired the poor structure and popped. It was a nice trade. Took that off. I did another one looking for POC. It wasn't going anywhere. I took it off. I basically scratch made small, and then finally M made its move. Now, a bunch of things. ES and the SPY did not get either overnight high or low or pre-market high or low. That's twice this week, right? Tuesday and Thursday. It only happens 3% of the time. It happened two out of the last 3 days. And actually, yesterday, we didn't get it till M period. So you talk about a market that's pretty unsettled. I guess it's just balanced, but the way these algos are trading and whatnot, pretty weird how we have not gotten overnight highs, lows. Very weird for my money. Now, let's go to the charts, and then we're going to have to talk about the dividend. So, I'll just show you the weekly and the daily. So 1 day to go in the week. We are balanced to down because we're one-time framing down, took out the last 2 weeks' lows. But it's still pretty healthy for my money. I mean, the fact that they, it could have been really ugly for the bulls if they continued down. You look at where they stopped, right? 4 weeks ago, the low was 296.87. This week's low is 296.74 so far. So we stretched that low a little bit and came back in. So for my money's worth, unless we really collapse tomorrow, the bulls had a fairly decent week. Okay? I mean, as of right now, we're up for the week. We were down $15 the previous week. As of now, we're up, $7. So not a bad week considering what it looked like early on. And then the daily, firmly in a 3-day balance. Inside day down, I'm going to say failed because the seller's got nothing out of it. So that's gone because it's just an inside day, right? So that's over with. 3-day balance. The high and low of that balance is Tuesday's high and low. We haven't been able to take out either one of them. Now, SPY closed at 311.78. The dividend's going to be somewhere around the $1.40, $1.50 level. So right now, SPY is going to be priced tomorrow morning at around, it's going to show the close as around whatever the dividend is, 310.38 or whatever. So now, depending on what the market does tomorrow morning, will we trade inside of yesterday's range? Will there be a dividend gap? We've had those before. I've had a dividend gap that didn't get filled for a long time. So it remains to be seen. But the SPY and ES will have an absolute huge disconnect for trading hours tomorrow because of the dividend. And by the way, so we don't go unnoticed, look at how this, right? We had our little death cross. And I don't pay much attention to them. That's what happened when we had our death cross. So we had it back on March 27th. And the low of that day in SPY was 251.05. So when we had our death cross, 251.05 was the low. We went lower 3 days later, 243.90. So 244 and 251. So yes, it did go $7 lower from when the death cross. But in a bigger scheme of things, since that low of 244, we went up to 323. So how much weight do we really put on these things? And the reason I'm saying that is pretty soon we're going to be probably crossing the 200 to the upside, which is very bullish. But again, look at the move we've made since then. So I don't hold a lot of weight. The only reason I'm saying this is because a lot of people do. A lot of people went short that day probably because of the death cross. Well, first of all, you lost money the next 2 days. If you held on to your short, you finally made money when it gapped lower. But I'll tell you what, you better have taken that position off because 2 days later you were out money again. So I don't put a lot of weight into them. Anyway, we had a pretty good day again in camelbacktrading.org. Come check us out. Have a great night, and we'll speak prior to the opening tomorrow.